The Night Ripper, by none other than Puppet Combo, is a survival horror game in which a waitress named Rachel, walking home from a diner late at night in the streets of New York City, stalked by the titular Ripper, a serial who exclusively prostitutes, or people he thinks are workers, with a switchblade and sometimes a broken glass bottle, using his black sedan to travel around, all while wearing a duck mask draped in a black trench coat and a black hat. Reminds me of Darkwing. And making duck calls while he's doing it, something I personally think is just plain daffy. The whole game is an homage to the 1982 Lucio Fulci film The New York Ripper, which in turn was about a serial killer who killed people in the sex industry with switchblades and glass bottles while duck calling. Yeah, it's a spectacle you've gotta see to believe. So do go check it out if you're into 80s slasher movies. Serving as a commentary for the street characters and life in general that roam the subways, back streets, alleys, projects, or just the city altogether during the 70s and especially the 80s, seeing as anyone that wasn't lucidly a drug-addled killer candidate vagrant sociopath would be stalked, harassed, or assaulted during that era, or now that I think about it. Just any decade in general in New York City, knowing the miscreants that live there. Since the police suspected that all this was the work of a single party, what are the legal corollaries that the Ripper, the DJ, might face if he's ever apprehended? Well, let me preface some things here. We're only going to look at the crimes the Night Ripper has committed and not the New York Ripper, since I think I need to pander to my audience and YouTube doesn't like it when we try something new. We're also not a legal channel, giving legal advice. We're in no way qualified to speak about something pertaining to criminal law, but this is just a fun observation of a video game we're making, and laughably taking way too seriously, yada yada yada, don't sue us, allegedly, blah blah blah. Now that we're covered if anyone tries to file against us, in proper copy-paste JCS criminal psychology fashion, and I literally mean copy and paste because it's what YouTube seems to like at the moment aside from Minecraft and reactionary faces, we should lay the basis for the legal grounds that this quack is gonna be charged on from a prosecutorial perspective. According to James F. Albrecht of St. John's University in Law and Order in Ancient Civilizations, in defining criminal law, he writes, quote, "Criminal law is the body of law that relates to crime. It prescribes conduct perceived as threatening, harmful, or otherwise endangering to the property, health, safety, and moral welfare of people exclusive of oneself. Most criminal law is established by statute, which is to say that the laws are enacted by a legislature," unquote. I.e., an express violation of the law in which the defendant has clearly committed a crime and is being put on trial after being either detained or arrested, and at the end of their trial, either being acquitted or being convicted beyond a reasonable doubt. If arrested, the then accused Ripper would no doubt be charged in a criminal court of law knowing the crimes in question. To see which laws apply in the Ripper's case, we know the events of the Night Ripper take place in New York City, as the DJ states at the beginning of the game.
Drugs and homosexuality.
What?
Maybe the Night Ripper is what's actually needed. Maybe this is the catharsis of this city. You just don't understand. In New York City, we have the Night Ripper. All he's murdering are drug-addled prostitutes. Why is this necessarily a bad thing?
Can I turn off this person?
Not giving this man a badge. There's no
Okay. Alright, I've had enough of that garbage. Change it to my...
The state of New York under section sign 125.25 states, quote, "If you intentionally or recklessly cause the death of another person, you could face a homicide charge." There's several different offenses in the New York Criminal Code relating to taking the life of another person, including homicide, manslaughter, and murder. Of all the crimes related to homicide, the most serious are murder in the first degree, murder in the second degree, and aggravated murder. Each is a Class A1 felony, meaning that if you are convicted, you could be sentenced to life in prison. Under New York Penal Law, section sign 125.25, you could be prosecuted for murder in the second degree if you 1. Intentionally cause the death of another person, 2. Recklessly cause the death of another person under the conditions that showed that you had a depraved indifference for human life, 3. Cause the death of another person during the commission of another crime such as robbery, burglary, arson, or sexual assault, or 4. Cause the death of another person under the age of 11 during the commission of a sex crime such as rape in the first degree, criminal sexual act in the first degree, or incest in the first degree. It's manifestly obvious that the Ripper, who we're gonna call Dolan, for the sake of elucidation from now on, has committed crimes that clearly fall under these criteria via stabbing the to death. Why not first degree murder? you ask? According to New York penal law, under section sign 125.27, you can be prosecuted for murder in the first degree if you intentionally caused the death of another person and the victim was a police officer engaged in performing his or her official duties, intentionally caused the death of another person and the victim was a firefighter, emergency medical technician, ambulance driver, paramedic, physician, or registered nurse responding to an emergency, intentionally caused the death of another person and the victim was an employee of a state correctional facility performing his or her official duties, intentionally caused the death of a witness prior to a crime in order to prevent the witness from testifying, or because the witness already testified, intentionally caused the death of another person for profit, caused the death of another person in furtherance of the commission of another serious felony such as kidnapping in the first degree, arson in the first degree, or rape in the first degree, caused the death of another person who had previously been convicted of murder in the second degree, or caused the death of another person under the conditions that showed you had a depraved indifference for human life. Why does first-degree murder apply only to public servants like cops and not minors under the age of 11 during the commission of a sex act at the time of their death? Because the morals of the legal system are absolutely f***ed. What the hell is wrong with lawmakers? There's also the additional charge of attempted murder of Rachel, or the murder of Rachel and possibly Rhonda, depending on how you interpret the game. According to section 110.05, what classifies as an attempt to commit a crime is, quote, Class AI felony when the crime attempted is the AI felony of murder in the first degree, aggravated murder as defined in subdivision 1 of section 125.26 of this chapter, criminal possession of a controlled substance in the first degree, criminal sale of a controlled substance in the first degree, criminal possession of a chemical or biological weapon in the first degree, or criminal use of a chemical or biological weapon in the first degree, unquote. Okay, yeah, that's all fine and dandy, but it gets puzzling once we take into account that murder in the second degree is also one opening up the possibility of being sentenced to life in prison. So if you have further explications about these laws that could help inchoate understandings, we would immensely appreciate the facts. So please post it in the comments down below. Moreover, according to New York penal law under section 130, sexual conduct means intercourse, oral sexual conduct, anal conduct, aggravated sexual contact, or sexual contact, or just anything having to do with the sexual act. Correspondingly, under section 130.20, quote, a person is guilty of sexual misconduct when 1. He or she engages in sexual intercourse with another person without such person's consent, or 2. He or she engages in conduct or anal conduct with another person without such person's consent, or 3. He or she engages in conduct with an animal or dead human body, unquote. A case where the term penal law is of great significance. Keep in mind it's only a misdemeanor for rape. What the fuck is wrong with you, New York? With that out of the way, let's take a look at the crimes we know for sure took place. According to Dolan's wiki page, there are at least 7 known murders, all of which were obviously prostitutes. A woman he tried to kill, I don't need a resume. Lisa Mueller, who was another prostitute. An unnamed prostitute the player encounters in-game but gets killed off-screen, and depending on how you interpret the game, Rachel and possibly Rhonda, probably along with tons of other people among the victims. So from the verified and assaults that took place, we found that in a criminal court case, either in separate trials or in one assuming Rachel and Rhonda died in the end, Dolan could be charged with 12 counts of second-degree murder and 1 count of sexual misconduct. Knowing that second-degree murder carries with it the very minimum sentence of 15 years to life in prison, and sexual misconduct carries the absolute minimum sentence of being on the New York registry for a minimum of 20 years, making the least legally possible amount of time Dolan could spend in prison 180 years, with parole being completely out of the question, since a duck is the last animal you'd want to adopt as your serial killer alter ego for even a bird. I mean, come on, it's not even Halloween yet! The maximum verified lifespan was 122 years and 164 days, and considering Dolan is at least in his early 20s, he'll most likely rot away in prison and probably far away from any pond he can frolic near. So his only option from here on out, if he gets caught, is to get a really good lawyer that could land him the lightest sentence possible. So nevertheless, unless he gets a public defender, his counsel is gonna be billing him a hefty amount, and I don't know how much radio commentary pays. I know some murderers struggle to control their homicidal urges, but the one thing he absolutely can't afford to kill is reasonable doubt. So I say with absolute certainty and conviction, we the people of America, and not New York because their laws suck, accuse Dolan, the radio host slash woman slashing loony screwball, of having quite a few loose and being too animated and maniacal for his own good. His knob is tuned to the wrong frequency. He's on a different wavelength than everybody else. Something happened to the egg in embryonic development. He's just one piece of bread away from a picnic. This unforgiving sadist took it upon himself, with none other than his own volition, to stab everyone he thought was a drug-addled to death, some of who turned out to be just women roaming the streets at night. What did they do to him that was so wrong it warranted the outcome? These women were just trying to earn themselves bread, which I'm sure Dolan can empathize with, and they did nothing to him whatsoever besides live their lives separate from his beliefs, but apparently those beliefs didn't include having respect for and not the dead after you stab them to death. Yeah, did I mention that? He's also a corpse fucker, ladies and gentlemen.
Our medical examiner determined that the body had been there for at least 3 days, said Greene County Sheriff Paul Tannenbaum during a press conference last Tuesday. The body also bore signs of a violent sexual assault, likely post-mortem. The other 2 bodies we've...
A complete degenerate. We're charging him with 12 counts of second-degree and 1 count of sexual misconduct.